Lethal Company. It's a game. Here we go again. I'm currently in the process of one of my busiest college terms yet, but that's not going to stop me from covering Lethal Company for this new updated guide series. So today we're going to jump straight into covering the enemies. I'll first go over the game's core spawn mechanics because that's pretty important information, and then move on to each individual enemy. Similar to the other guide videos I'll be making, I'll be covering the newer enemies further in detail than the older ones, and then the other stuff that I've already covered in the previous enemies guide, you can go ahead and refer back to if you want something more detailed. But yeah, go ahead and grab your favorite snack, and let's go ahead and just jump straight into the overview. So something I didn't notice or touch on before in the previous enemies guide is that Lethal Company spawns enemies the longer you reside at each of its moons. Go figure. Many people actually lack the knowledge when playing of how this actually works. So let's cover the power system first. Each location has its own respective indoor and outdoor power levels that determine both how many enemies spawn and how frequently they spawn on any given moon. I'll format this video in a similar light to how the previous enemies guide was, except this time I'll only display each moon's power level that can possibly spawn each enemy at the end in a given chart. This is because some of the new enemies added to the game only spawn on certain moons. So to quickly explain what these numbers mean, power level is the figure used in the game's spawning system to determine the total pool of enemies that spawn on a moon. For example, if March has an indoor power level of 14, this means that 7 enemies that have a power level of 2 can spawn in its bunker. Also, any combination that adds to 14 or less power as well. If the max entity count of the Thumper was 5, for example, which is not, but we'll get into it, there could only be 4 Thumpers that spawn in March because their power level is 3. Okay, now that this power level system is explained, let me also touch on one more thing. Each enemy also has a spawn chance that determines at any given hour of day when they will spawn. Each moon has a spawn chance multiplier curve that gets larger as the day goes on, multiplying the enemy's base chance to spawn until there are literally stupid dumb idiot pants numbers of said enemy on the map. For instance, a baboon hawk on March, which has a spawn chance of 41%, will have its spawn chance boost up to around 62% by the time 6 PM rolls around, due to the outdoor spawn chance multiplier in March gradually moving up to around 1.5 times at 6 PM. This is all kind of nerdy stuff, but it can be important to understand how the difficulty of these enemies, especially in their numbers, can increase as the day goes on. Now that we got these two concepts out of the way, I'll continue on to cover each individual enemy as of version 64, separating the enemies out by what type they are and their difficulty. So let's go ahead and start with the daytime. So to save time, I won't actually be covering manticoils or roaming locusts in this guide. I know they're really cute and they're little critters that you can say hi to, but I think these guys aren't really that much of a threat and aren't really anything other than a cool little aesthetic addition to the game. I will, however, cover these other two, starting with the circuit bees. Circuit bees are the only daytime enemy that can attack you as of version 64 and actually deal damage. And they do this when you try to steal their hive. If you get within a few feet of the beehive, they will speed after you and try to dump venom inside your guts. They will have a power level of 1 and a max spawn count of 6, and have infinite health. They can spawn on Experimentation, Assurance, Vow, March, Adamance, and Artifice. For all these enemies, to keep it short, I will list contrasting spawn rates for each moon's spawn rate multiplier during given parts of the day. 1% for when you spawn in on the moon, and another one for later on the moon. Every time I list out HP as well, know that 1 HP is 1 shovel hit, and 5 HP is 1 close range shotgun shot. Tulip snakes are a daytime enemy that can kinda attack you. I mean, the way they function is when they spot a player, they will move towards them and go into lunge in for an attack, dealing no damage, but they'll cling to your head. Then they will try to fly upwards, lifting you up into the sky. You will only gain flight though when there's 2 or more of them on your head at a given time and they both try to fly at the same time. And the cool thing about these guys is you can actually use them as kind of a pseudo jetpack if you learn how to fly with them and control them with WASD. Be careful not to fall from too great of a height though, because with the new fall damage system it can be pretty hard to deal with getting dropped by these guys prematurely. They have a power level of 0.5 and a max spawn count of 12, and have an HP of 1. Other than mechanics though, the tulip snakes spawn on Experimentation, Assurance, Vow, March, Adamance, and Artifice. Now that you guys kind of get the format of the entire video and these first 2 daytime enemies, let's jump right into the nitty gritty with the nighttime. I'm going to list these enemies from now on, from how easy I think they are to how hard they are. So to start with baboon hawks, I think they're the easiest of the nighttime outdoor enemies, at least in my opinion. They can attack you if their fear level is low enough, which is typically when they outnumber you, don't see any dead hawks, or if you aren't making any noise. Each baboon hawk has an HP of 4, a power level of 0.5, and a max spawn count of 15, which I think is the highest in the game. They spawn most commonly on offense, march, and adamants. You'll notice that I only listed 3 here, and that's because from now on, I'll only list the top 3 moons each enemy spawns at to save some time. And at the end of each segment, I'll show you how many spawn on average on each map. Feel free to pause the video at these graphs I make. Earth Leviathans are massive worms that burrow underground, waiting for prey to gobble up. They have infinite health, a power level of 2, and a max spawn count of 3. They instantly kill you if they catch you, and spawn most commonly on offense, experimentation, and assurance. Here's how many spawn on any given map. Notice they're very consistent spawning on assurance and offense. They also have the biggest blip on the map, so you kind of know when they come around. Eyeless dogs are one of the most iconic enemies in Lethal Company, if not the most iconic, coming in at a power level of 2 and a max spawn count of 8, and a whopping 12 hit points. They operate based on sound as the name suggests, so if you have an item that makes noise, talk too loud, or run, they will charge at you and try to chomp you. They most commonly spawn on Rend and offense, experimentation, and Titan. Here's the spawning chart for these guys. These guys spawn a lot more than worms on most maps, you'll notice. Forest giants are massive tree creatures straight out of Zelda or something, I don't know. They have a power level of 3, a max spawn count of 3, and have the most health out of any enemy in the game, 38 HP. It's kind of ridiculous. Good luck taking down with a shovel, John Wick, fucking Chuck Norris looking ass. They spawn most commonly on Rend, Dine, and Val. They spawn a fucking shit ton on Val, by the way. In fact, this is one of the reasons I barely go to Val in the first place. Look out for them on Titan and March as well. We won't be covering kidnapping foxes in this video because they've been removed from the game as of version 65, so let's go ahead and skip to the old birds. Old birds are the last and latest and hardest of the nighttime enemies, and they have one of the most interesting mechanics in the game. This is because they basically have fucking 3 times the amount of ways to kill you as any other enemy. If they fly after you and start screaming their head off, you're basically doomed unless you're near the ship. They will start by shooting a large barrage of missiles towards you, and then charge at you with their rocket boots and try to pin you down and burn you to death. Wow, that's so fun. Old birds have a power level of 3, it should be fucking 10, a max spawn count of 20, it should be fucking 1, and oh yeah, they're invincible, cool beans, that's cool. They spawn most commonly on Titan and Dine, and have a guaranteed fucking spawn on Artifice and Embryon, with the latter typically spawning a dozen or more. Here's how many you can expect to find everywhere. Now that that's out of the way, I hate to break it to you guys, but blah 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 blah, only 4% of you are subscribed. What the fuck ever, okay? If you want to subscribe, please do. That would be awesome, okay? Thanks, bye! Now I'm gonna get into the largest list of them all, the interior guys. Going from easiest to hardest once again, these ones will be a bit shorter for not only the sake of saving time, but also because I've already covered most of them at this point in the past. Spore lizards are massive turd-looking things that have a power level of 1 and a max spawn count of 2. They have an infinite health and will bite you and spray out a pink powder, limiting vision, if you get too close to them. Other than that, I think they're super cute actually, and they mostly try to avoid you, actively running away from you when they see you. They spawn semi-rarely on every map, mostly on Adamants, Embryon, and Experimentation though. Here's how much they spawn on each map, which isn't that much as I said. Probably because they're so easy and cute, and Seeger hates us and wants us to suffer and never have good things and doesn't want me to be able to pet the spore lizards. Anyways, hoarding bugs are big bugs. Big, huggable bugs that are kind of awesome. They have a power level of 1 and a max spawn count of 10. They roam around the map looking for loot and anything they can get their yippy limbs on. They aren't too much of a threat so long as you respect their pro-capitalism viewpoints and worldviews. They most commonly spawn on Vow, Assurance, and Embryon. Here's the spawning chart, so yeah. Huggerdeers are slimes. They're big slimes that want to hug you and eat you up. Nom 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 nom. They have a power level of 1 and a max spawn count of 2, and they pretty much spawn on the map and immediately start rapidly approaching your location to eat you up. Did I say rapidly? My bad, I lied. I definitely lied. They are slow as shit. Anyways, don't touch them and you should be fine. Also don't get cornered. You can also have a dance party with them if you so choose. It's pretty cool. They spawn most commonly on Embryon, Experimentation, and Assurance. And they kind of spawn all over the place, but semi-rarely, as you can see by this chart. Snare fleas are centipedes that you should try to burn at all costs. If you are into infantilizing centipedes or millipedes and you think they're super cute and you want a tattoo of them and you want a plush of them, you are not valid. You are the problem. I hate you and I hate you and I hate you. Sorry. They have a power level of 1 and a max spawn count of 4, and these fuckers will sneakily latch onto the ceiling and then onto your face if you're not careful and you walk under them, draining you of all the blood straight out of your mouth, and that's not terrifying at all. Not a fan. They spawn most commonly on experimentation and assurance. Here's how many spawn in each place, though they spawn at both of these easy moons twice as much. Those first 4 are kind of the easier enemies of the game, so let's go ahead and start moving into some of the interior enemies that are a bit of a drag to deal with. Starting with the bunker spider. The bunker spider has a power level of 2 and a max spawn count of 1. The reason why this guy gets a bit harder is his trickery, his mischief, he's a fucking spider. He wants to eat you like most things in this game, and will lay web traps to slow you all the way down to his slow ass speed. He will also kill you in 2 bites, which isn't fun at all. These things spawn most commonly on offense and march, assurance, and experimentation. Here's their spawn chart, though they spawn pretty consistently on these 4 moons more than others. New enemy alert! The Butler is the first new indoor enemy I'll be covering on this list, and they are one of the most recent enemies I've ever covered on this channel. Rejoice! New content, finally! Yippee! I did not just fucking say rejoice. Okay, so the Butler has a power level of 2 and a max spawn count of 7, which is pretty interesting. They have a cool mechanic where they will single out one player if they get tapered off from the group at some point, before they let out their murderous tendencies all sneakily like and try to stab said player to death. If you manage to kill them, which is kinda easy considering they only have 2 HP on single player and 8 HP on multiplayer, you will spawn invincible bees that will roam throughout the inside of the facility, which is fucking bonkers and pretty hard to deal with. It's funny because I said the enemies are getting only a bit harder, but the Butler itself is actually a pretty significant spike in difficulty. They only spawn on Adamance, Rend, Artifice, and Dine though, so the chart is pretty easy on me with these guys. The Thumper is an enemy that moves on 2 arms, and lore-wise it ate its own legs off after birth, which isn't disturbing at all. They will only operate on seeing you, as they are deaf and frequently run into walls while chasing you. If they catch you, they will kill you in just about 3 bites, and they have an HP of 4 hits. They spawn most frequently on Adamance, March, and Offense. Here's their spawn chart for reference. Moving on, we have the Jester. A lot of you might be surprised that it appears this early in the list, and there's a good reason for this. Its main mechanic when it spawns in is literally based on everyone being in the bunker for it to start progressing through its phases, which I'll get into now. The first phase it has is when it spawns in, it will stalk the player for a while before entering its second phase, which is its cranking phase. It'll crank its box like Jack Goes the Weasel or Mary Had a Little Lamb. What's the fucking thing? Jack in the Box. Pop Goes the Weasel. That's what it is. Oh my god, I'm stupid. Okay, anyways. Once it gets to its cranking phase, it'll take anywhere from 35 to 40 seconds to finish cranking and Pop Goes the Weasel into its abomination state, which will chase after any individual player, gradually increasing its speed until it's going Mach 69. Pretty terrifying. But the reason why it's pretty low on this list is because it'll actually reset when you leave the bunker. And so long as everyone's left the bunker as a group, it'll only take around 5 seconds for it to reset to its stalking phase. They spawn most commonly on Artifice, Titan, and Rend. When Jesters spawn on the map, they typically won't enter the cranking phase unless they actually make contact with an employee to some degree, at least from what I find. This Jester is also the first of a lot of enemies here now that are an insta-kill when they attack. Man-eaters. Oh boy, I'm sure you guys are excited for this one. The newest enemy added to Lethal Company comes in at a power level of 2 and a max spawn count of 1. It has some pretty freaking terrifying clips already up on YouTube over the past month. This man-eater will spawn in and constantly demand attention from employees. If you piss it off in any way, shape, or form, such as hitting it or rocking it too much, it will enter its crying state. Its crying state is a precursor to a 17-second cooldown to its final phase, where it becomes a terrifying fucking beast that will stop at nothing in order to feast on every living creature it can find. The best way to prevent this is to A, keep track of the first player who comes into contact with it, who it will mother like a duckling. B, not hit it with anything. C, not rock it too much. And D, not leave it alone for more than 9 seconds. It's a needy little shit. Also, they have an 8% chance to eat any given scrap item, so good luck storing loot piles around the place. They also have an HP of 5 just for reference. Okay, touch on it enough I think. The man-eater spawns most commonly on Assurance, Adamance, and Vow. And here's their average spawning chart. Bracken. Oh my god, they're so hot. Okay, anyways, yeah, Bracken are demon flower creatures that stalk around the map, hunting players in order to snap some necks. They're probably the second most iconic Lethal Company creature to the eyeless dogs and hoarding bugs, and they can only be stopped by being glanced at, not by being stared at though. They spawn most commonly on Rend, March, and Vow. Yeah, so they're really tall too, which is cool. Super tall and mysterious. They're like super strong too, especially since they have like 6 HP and can snap necks with ease with their big strong arms and everything. So now we're gonna get into the really rough to deal with enemies on Lethal Company, starting off with the Ghost Girl. The Ghost Girl has a power level of 2 and a max spawn count of 1. They will hunt one player at a time, not being seen by any other player. And I explained her mechanics a lot more in my last video, so a rule of thumb for this time, just don't look at her or touch her to the best of your ability. She won't enter the hunting phase unless you piss her off enough, in which she will skip towards you and take your head clean off. Fucking bitch. She spawns most commonly on Titan, Dine, and Rend, and here's her average spawn chart. Notice that she can actually spawn at a lot more places than you'd think for being such a mysterious and almost rare enemy. All of these 4 past enemies have been an instant killer, so let's go ahead and back up a moment to get to something somehow harder than an instant kill, the Coilhead. Some of you might be shocked that the Coilheads don't actually instant kill, because they actually deal 90 damage every 0.2 seconds, which is basically an instant kill, but if you're lucky, you'll be okay. They're also the 3rd fastest entity in the game to the Thumper and the Jester, coming in at a power level of only 1 and a max spawn count of 5. They are the weeping angels of Lethal Company, meaning that if you break eye contact with them, they will essentially try to explode you. They spawn most commonly on Rend, Titan, and Offense. They're also invincible, and I hope they all dissolve in a massive pit of sulfuric acid before this election ends, thanks Seekers. Okay, back to insta-kills. The masked enemy is the 3rd hardest enemy in this long list in my opinion, and I'll tell you why. A lot of people are going to think Coilheads are harder than masked enemies, but they roam around the facility typically moving in a similar speed to a regular employee, running occasionally as well, and will do anything in their power to grab you and vomit possession juices in your face, killing you instantly. They don't have too much health, but make up for it in terms of their slight amount of stealth, in the form of literally replicating other employees. They will also follow you and kill you outside the facility in a fashion that is more aggressive than the Ghost Girl, which is my main reason why I've ranked them so high. They spawn most commonly on Titan, Rend, and Artifice, and their spawn chart is pretty interesting as they only really spawn on a 3rd of the moons in the game, so take this into account. We're getting near the end of the video. Thanks for sticking around as long as you have. The 2nd hardest enemy in the game is the Nutcracker in my opinion. I've actually covered this guy and the mask back in my old Update 47 video, and they have since gotten so much harder individually, it's insane. Nutcrackers, for one, can now kick you and instantly kill you if you get too close to their legs. They also shoot a fucking shotgun as well, which typically instantly kills you depending on your range. The only way to deal with this is to attack it while it's reloading now, essentially. It has a power level of 1, a max spawn count of fucking 10, similar in both ways to the masked, and has an HP of 5, which feels like so much more when you choose to actually fight the thing. They spawn a lot on Artifice, Titan, and Rend. They are the 2nd hardest enemy in the game because of their offensive capabilities, but don't let that deter you from learning the strat to getting a shotgun, where you loop around a corner, draining it of most ammo before getting 1 shovel hit at a time while it's reloading. The shotgun is one of the most important weapons in the game for you to get, so definitely don't dance around this. Now, unlike the Nutcracker, the hardest enemy in the game is actually incredibly recent, doesn't drop anything because it can't be fucking killed, and instantly kills you. On top of this, it can't be seen until it's right in front of you, about to attack, travels in pairs of 2 typically, and is one of the most terrifying creatures to ever touch this fucking game. I'm of course talking about the Barber. Barbers are the hardest enemy in Lethal Company without a goddamn doubt in my mind. Every time I end up hearing a Barber traveling around, I consider tucking my tail between my legs and heading back up to the ship empty-handed. Not only is their kill range only half that of the range you can actually see them, but they also lunge forward faster and faster as the day goes on, similar to the Jester. These guys come in at a power level of 1, a max spawn count of 1, and they typically multiply from there, and are invincible and invisible up to 5 feet in front of you. They most commonly spawn on Artifice and Vow, Embryon, and Dine. Just another fucking reason not to go to Embryon, by the way, let me tell ya. So yeah, that was a long one. I hope you guys made it this far without going absolutely insane, and I really hope you enjoyed your time here as well. Feel free to follow me on Bluesky, join my Discord server, or support me on Patreon below if you enjoyed it. I post videos anywhere from a day to a week early on there, and I'm getting back in the swing of posting stuff for you guys now that my college schedule is getting a bit less busy. But yeah, hopefully a few more guides and fun content will come out before the end of the year, so look forward to that. And that's pretty much it. That's the end.